there and where businesses are going down. So I think I'll be able to, put across a few points which may help you to ponder upon and to think that what is it that you can, take from this experience, and what is it that you can apply to your own business. So, but before I start, let me give you a disclaimer. See, I am not a professional motivational speaker. One, so that's a statutory warning. Okay. So, and secondly, I don't belong to any Ivy League college education group. No IITs, no IIMs. So, and I belong to a very small place from where I come. But I've been a soldier for 24 years. I've traveled all across India, right from the last post in Leh Ladakh to Kanyakumari Vivekanand Rock in the south. On the east side, talk of Badmer, the last international boundary, and to the west and to east, look at Sikkim and Shillong. So most of it, I think I have covered most of India, and it is not just traveling as a traveler. It has been a long tenure, 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, 3 years. So in that tenure, if you are an observant man, you understand and you grasp a lot of stories from the local guys. You make a lot of friends there, and you understand most importantly, you understand the culture that every region has. And believe me, I feel very strongly that during these tenures or postings during my soldier days, it has given me a lot of exposure to these cultures and how to understand the people of different cultures. What are their aspirations? What do they look for in the society? What are their dreams and ambitions in life? And it varies completely different from one place to another. You'll be surprised. I mean, we don't take the human beings like that, but when you start observing it properly and when you start understanding them, you feel that every place, every region has a different aspiration. As a community, they have different ambitions and different dreams. So aspiration and ambitions of a person from Sikkim are not as similar to a person from Tamil Nadu, Kanyakumari, or a person from Rajasthan. So they are different. I'll talk about it as we go along. So after having given you this, the statutory warning and the disclaimer, let me, before I start with the actual, perception of tough men and tough times, let me put a few things in the perspective. It is very important to understand the context that I'm speaking in. When I talk of the context, I must tell you that, as I said earlier, that I believe that the creativity is something which actually makes the world go. The world that we live in today is actually manifestation of dreamers of the past, of our historical dreamers, right? And what do the dreamers do? The dreamers are not people who are sleeping for 8 hours to 10 hours. They are not people who are dreaming Mungeri Lal ke Haseen Sapne. Dreamers are people who work hard to put their dreams into a framework which the whole world will understand and they will follow. Dreams are something which doesn't let you sleep. It keeps you awake. That is what our, Honorable President APJ Abdul Kalam said. And I completely agree with him. So what do the dreamers do? To understand that, you must know that, dreamers actually create a very powerful story. So what is a story? Let me start with that, right? So what is a story? A story is anything or any framework which the society will follow. For example, the oldest story, if I have to tell you which is the oldest story of humankind, it is the religion. I'm not trying to condemn any kind of religion, okay? So about 6 million years ago, when the same chimpanzee mother, started giving birth to Homo sapiens, that is our species, there were two or three more species which were born around the same time. Neanderthals, I'm sure you've heard of these things, and then there were Denisovans, and they were the stronger built physically by their fossils and by whatever remains that we have dug up all over the world. We realized Homo sapiens were the weakest physically, in comparison to their cousins of Neanderthals and the Denisovans, who were 6.5 to 7 feet tall, very broad chested. But somehow the weakest link has survived, and none of them have survived. So, why do you think that we survived? Please look at it from the wholesome picture. It is my understanding of the whole thing that since we were the weakest, so what did we do? We made tribes to save ourselves. We made communities. We started staying in groups. But in those groups, you had to put in some common thread so that everybody in the tribe is following a certain norms that the society is putting up. Where would those norms come in those days? Imagine I'm talking of the initial Homo sapiens who were just hunter gatherers, and they had no knowledge of understanding, or there were no moralities. So how do you put this a social norm into them? So the human beings created something known as religion. They created a story around it. That there's a, I'm not denying it. There has to be a God Almighty, but I'm just trying to give you my perspective of the whole story and how this wonderful story and the most powerful story has survived. So they created a religion. They said there's, sun god, there is moon god, there is, there's a devil, there's a demon. And then if you don't do the work properly, if you don't follow the norms, then the devil is going to come and kill you. You're going to go to hell. If you do it all right with the societal norms, then you're going to go to heaven with the God sit on his right side or left side. So this whole story was so powerful that it has continued till today, and even today the most powerful story remains religion, right? So that's the power of story that we're talking of, and it is all about creativity, how beautifully you weave these stories. And who creates these stories? As I said, dreamers. So let me take you through a few names of the dreamers who have been my inspiring dreamers. You've heard of Walt Da Vinci. Everybody, I'm sure, and everybody, unfortunately, everybody relates him to only the art. We all talk about Mona Lisa, the most famous painting, The Last Supper. But surprisingly, you will be surprised to know that he made detailed scientific sketches for more than 100 scientific new discoveries which have been followed till date. The first parachute was actually designed by Da Vinci. The first tank in the world, detailed design, has been designed by Da Vinci. The first, robotic man, the Veruvian man, has been designed by Da Vinci. And those are detailed scientific framework which has been copied, which has been actually brought around after the science has evolved. People have copied that and actually started making the real things. He has made the first design for a multi-barrel gun. I mean, talk of 15th century, this man, when the guns were not around, when the gunpowder was not around, and this man is designing a multi-barrel gun and a tank. So that's the power of a dreamer, right? Now, talk about in the Indian context, everybody knows Mahabharata is the most beautiful epic or the longest epic that we have. It is almost 100 times larger than the largest Western epic, Iliad and Odyssey by Homer, right? It is almost 2 lakh couplets. So, and he describes about the most developed and the most, latest of missiles, the armory, the weapon system, and he gives you the complete astronomical phenomena. There are times where in Mahabharata, he has given out the astronomical chart. For example, the birth of Lord Krishna, the birth of Duryodhan. He has given a complete astronomical chart wherein he gives where is the position of moon, where is the position of sun, where is the position of most constellations. And now the science, when the science has evolved, they have put it on a computer, on a supercomputer, and they've tried to match up the timelines. And they realize that this exactly the astronomical phenomena happened around 16,000 BC. And it is the exact astronomical positions of all these constellations, which is impossible to dream actually. I'm sure there has to be something true to it. So the points that I'm trying to make is that these are the guys who were dreamers. Shakespeare, talk of 147 different novellas, your one act plays. I mean, the kind of 800 or so writings of Shakespeare. It is impossible for a man in those ages to conjure up so many of different things. So today it is easier for you to, because you're exposed to so many things, but this man writes it during those periods. Now come to Rumi, Bulleh Shah. Rumi talks of the psychology, the Sufism in a manner which even today it is the most popular reading all over Europe. I mean, that's the power of a dreamer. He talks about a plane or a realm which we even today can't think about. Talk of Narendra Modi, our honorable prime minister, starting from a humble background and just a dream, an idea which continues with him. And today, he runs the whole country. So I'm just saying that these are people who are dreamers, but they put their dreams with their hard work into a framework, and they allow the balance of the society to follow them. One particular person after this in the recent times that I'm completely inspired by, I would like to, talk to you about him, Mr. Stephen Hawkins. I'm sure all of you have heard about him. He's a person who had the general disabilities, motor neuron disease. Almost 25 years of his last 25 years of his life, he was completely paralyzed, head to bottom. He had no voice. He had a special device so that whatever he wanted to speak, that device would, with his throat movements, it would take out the voice. And in those times, he's given you the theories of black hole. He's given you the explanation of relativity. He's given you the explanation of the space. And imagine in 2006, when he was in a discussion with somebody, he said, "My dream is to travel into the space about which I have given the theories to the whole world." Imagine a person who's completely paralyzed and he wants to go into, his dream is to go into the, into space. And there's another man, a businessman from US, Diamondis, right? In 2007, he made the dream come true. Look at Mr. Stephen Hawkins. This is the most iconic picture I find. A man who's paralyzed top to head to toe, and he is into the zero gravity flight. Despite all doctors saying that he is going to die if he goes into the zero gravity flight, this man goes in, fulfills his dream to a part, whatever was possible, comes back. Today, he rests between Charles Darwin and Isaac Newton. His grave is between these two greatest men in this world. So imagine what is the power of a dreamer, and what kind of stories can you create. Now, I spoke about the religion. Also, to give you a little more perspective, there was a research in UK, in which there's a man who did some analysis, and he sent out questionnaires to people. And the question was, whom would you trust between Queen Elizabeth and J.K. Rowling? Who's J.K. Rowling? She wrote a story for children, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Right? So the question is, whom would you trust more between J.K. Rowling and Queen Elizabeth? There's no comparison. And imagine what were the results. 64% people said we would trust J.K. Rowling. Can you imagine? A lady, the monarch of UK, who's been there for 99 decades. She's 94 years, I suppose, this year. Imagine people are saying, I don't trust her. And most people want to trust J.K. Rowling. So that's the power of story. Why? Because story makes you believe. Story makes you connect, build relationships. Story makes you, believe and do things which otherwise you would feel that they are not probable. So this is the context I just wanted to, speak with you and tell you to put the things in perspective. Now, just to, put some more the same issue of story, I want to show you something on the screen. On left and right, there are two portions. Can you all guess what is it I'm talking of? This is the top portion of Taj Mahal, right? Right? Some two pictures. This is the inner part of the dome. Look at the beauty of the work that has been done, right? Now this is one of the outer areas. Look at the work, the craftsmanship on the marble. The right one is even more difficult. Even today, it's almost impossible to get this kind of work done. But what am I talking about? These two things. One is Taj Mahal, and other is Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad. Right? These two are same things, but they have a different story. They have same marble, they have the same kind of designs, they have the same story inside, but externally, everybody, you know how many visitors traveled in 2019 to see Taj Mahal? 5.6 million, out of which almost 2 million were foreigners. And how many people visited Bibi Ka Maqbara? 40,000. Right? So that's the difference. The story is that Taj Mahal is about eternal love. Bibi Ka Maqbara is just a mausoleum. It is made, Taj Mahal is also made by a Mughal emperor. Bibi Ka Maqbara is made by Aurangzeb, the last Mughal emperor. Right? Taj Mahal is made in love, for love of his wife. Even Bibi Ka Maqbara is made by Aurangzeb for his wife. Both are made of marble, both have the same craftsmanship. Taj Mahal was made by one of the architects of Shah Jahan, whereas Bibi Ka Maqbara was made by the same architect's son in Aurangabad, right? So I'm saying there is so much of similarity, but the story sells. Story is what is different. Taj Mahal talks about the eternal love, the love for a man for his wife, and Bibi Ka Maqbara is like any other mausoleum, so there's nobody who's visiting that place. So that's the difference a story can make. Just to put across my point. Now, having seen this, let me come to the actual thing. I've put two things into context: who are dreamers, what is a story, and what is the power of a story. Let me come to who are tough men. So we've all seen movies while growing up, like Rambo. I'm sure all of you've seen it. Sylvester Stallone standing alone with one machine gun in the hand, other rocket launcher in the other hand, killing hundreds of people. Believe me, if you think tough men are fearless people, don't mix up the two things. Tough men are not fearless. If anything, I would say tough men are more scared and cautious than the fearless, stupid guys, right? And Rambo only happens in the movie world. It doesn't happen in the actual world. It comes from a soldier. I've seen it very close quarters, right? Because the difference is, uh, anybody who's not been in the army or who's not been trained on arms and ammunition doesn't know what a bullet can do to your body. But I've been trained in explosive and bullets. I know what a 7.62 or a 5.56 bullet can do to your body. It can create a hole almost 14 centimeters when it exits your backside. The entry side is only 0.1 but the exit side, it will be about 14 centimeters, right? So that's what a bullet can do. So I know what a bullet can do, so I'll be more cautious. Whereas, a fearless man, it's like, if you ask me that there's a fire on and there's an adult man and a child, who do you think will put the hand into the fire? The child will put the hand into the fire because the child doesn't know what fire can do to him. An adult man will always be more cautious because he knows what the fire can do, what harm can the fire do. So, first myth is tough men are fearless. Sorry, they are cautious, but at the same time, they are perseverant. They persevere to tough times. That is the difference. That is the only difference. They know with their experience, with their kind of training, with their mindset, they are going to live through the tough times and outlive the tough times. That is the difference of a tough man. It's not about being fearless. Now, the other myth about tough men is that they're only task oriented. As I go into the presentation, I will explain to you why it is again a myth. And only physical strength really doesn't matter, right? It is all about your mental strength and your storytelling, of course. So when I talk of the leaders, you see, we have three kind of brains in our, in our head. One is the reptilian brain, which is for the reptiles. It has got three commands: flight, freeze, and fight. Right? It tells
Yeah.
you the first reaction is flight, run away, moment you sense danger. Second is freeze, because of, you're scared. And the third is fight back. When you're cornered, you fight back. But this is the most basic of your brains. You have to, the tough men overcome this. They don't respond to a situation through the reptilian brain. They respond to the second brain, is your limbic or the mammalian brain, which tells you only about the emotions, right? And the third is the latest brain, which is neocortex, which gives you the logic and understanding, and experience is all mixed into this neocortex, right? So tough man is not using his reptilian brain, he is not using his limbic brain, he is using his neocortex. He is responding to a situation after looking at various options and being very cautious. He is not impulsive in the responses. Now, a tough man has to have his leadership qualities, and leadership qualities have changed over a period of time. Most of you, as you said, are, the startup CEOs or founders. Your businesses are into the beginning of scaling up, and you are looking at things. You are hiring people. It is a very important part of your leadership. And tough men create teams or build teams who stick together. And I will speak about it as we go ahead. How do you create camaraderie, and what plans or what various techniques do we use? In army, we have I was instructor in Indian Military Academy. They are called DS, directing staff. So there's a competition, OT competition. So there are 16 companies who are fighting to come first in the overall competition at the end of the term, at the end of that training term. And every term there is a banner which is given out. So OT competition is last of the competitions in every term. This is called obstacle training. There are about 24 different obstacles. The whole company is allowed from is given a time, and they are given to start from one place. They have to finish the complete obstacles, come to the end of it. The best part is it is not the individual part. If even if you are able to finish in 2 minutes the complete thing, you don't still get to be the winner. It is the average time of the company. So it has been done with a lot of thinking and very very good understanding of a team building spirit. Now what happens, there is a one particular obstacle which is called a Tarzan swing, in which you catch hold of the rope from one side. There is a landing area. You go with the rope to the other place and you land on the other side, and thereafter you run. If you are only individual, what will you do? You will hold the rope, run to the other side, leave the rope, and go ahead for the next obstacle. But what do you need to do actually, so that your whole company, the weaker links, the guys who are behind, they are able to catch the Tarzan jump rope. If you don't take a second and don't throw the rope back to the other person so that he can catch it, and if you don't throw the rope back correctly, then you are going to lose, because then that the other guy is going to take more time to catch hold of the rope, and your company loses time. So the interesting part is, while I was the instructor there, and there was one company of cadets under me, I realized that everybody in the company is trying to impress me, and they are trying to, reduce their time during this obstacle training competition. So what did I do? I told them, all right, tomorrow onwards, we are not going to have any, trial runs and any practice. You will all come to the obstacle training area, sit down here, and just spend 2 hours and go back. So next about 6 days of the competition training, they wasted their time. They sat down there, and by 6th day, I realized that they were able to pick out the weaker guys, and they were making them train and explaining to everybody automatically, guys, if you don't catch this rope, we are going to lose. So this is how you have to send the rope back. The other guy catches it, ensure that he catches it. Otherwise, don't leave the landing area. So in the overall thing, I realized the average time of the company was reduced by taking the weaker links with them. That's an understanding, and that is creating the camaraderie. That is building a team which will look after each and every one. The special forces of USA, they have this motto that they never leave a body behind. Even if the guy is dead, they won't leave him behind in the operations, right? So
Yeah.
that's the kind of team build up that they have. You have to nurture these teams. Now, the second example that I want to give you is, if you would want to see the tough man, look at the right side picture. These are the tough men doing commando course. I mean, look at the condition that we were in. Actually, in 24 hours, you're working for about 19 to 20 hours, running around, completely extremes of your body. But on the important side, I wanted to show you is, on the left hand side, something as, Lido jump. It is about 17 meters high. You take these steps ahead and you walk up. On the left side, if you see here, you see these, the steps with which you can go up. You have to walk on this bridge. You go to this rope, and there you jump into the water, right? So the first step, I want to tell you is, when I was doing this, I was sitting out, and waiting for my number. There's this instructor called Makhan Singh. He's a scraggy Khalsa from Sikhlai. He came, he looked at my face and realized that, I'm scared. So I'm talking about tough men and what is the kind of choice that you have to have. So this man came to me and he said, Commando, they don't call you by name, though we were already commissioned that time. They don't call you by name or anything. You are all commandos. So, right? So he said, Commando, are you scared? I said, yeah, I mean, I've just seen two or three guys falling incorrectly into the water, and thereafter they've been pulled out of the swimming pool. So, of course, I mean, I'm thinking that, what should I do? So he told me something very important in life. He said, look, when you sit here and your name is called, you'll have two choices: either to jump into the water and go up through that ladder, or you sit here and thereafter, you'll be punished and you will keep running around, and maybe, after some ragda and after some kind of punishments, maybe then reluctantly you will go up. So I said, okay. He said, then you will go up, and again you have two choices: either to walk on that and go till the rope, or you come back getting scared. I said, yes. I mean, when you stand there and when the complete bridge is, and it's not a very sturdy bridge. This bridge keeps moving, and you when you're if you have a little bit of shiver, then the whole bridge is going to enhance your shivering, right? It starts moving. So he said, so that is where you have to decide that you're not scared. Don't look at anybody. Just go straight. Focus on your path. If you're confident about it, automatically the bridge will support you. So I said, all right. He said, then when you are hanging on that rope, again you have two choices: either you jump from there, or you can come back the rope and come back down. Thereafter, if you don't jump, you will be failed and you will come back again for this course. But if you jump, if you take that jump, if you make the choice of taking the jump, remember, you will attain nirvana from this course, because this is a course which you will have to repeat if you fail. So if you don't want to repeat and you want to attain nirvana, jump from there, right? It is like salvation, attaining salvation. So he gave me a very important lesson in life, that it is all about your choices and taking your choices, keeping your focus, keep your confidence on, and take a jump sometimes when gut tells you, if you want to attain salvation, jump into it. You will attain salvation by one means or the other. So this is something I wanted to share with you. Now, as leaders, I need to talk to you about a very important part that I feel. Uh, at some point, we were all into the authoritarian form of leadership. I am telling you, so do it. That form of leadership has gone away. Why? Because the world at some time was complicated, but now it is complex. You understand the difference? Complicated is On an assembly line, there will be a, there'll be a small plastic metal, a plastic thing, which comes to the second stage where the filament is pushed into it. From there it goes to the third stage where the holder is pushed into it. Thereafter it goes to the first stage where the quality assurance is done, and thereafter the complete system is taken out and packed, right? So this is a complicated procedure, but today it's a complex procedure. There are many other issues. It is not just one single assembly line. There are many other issues which take the assembly line to through different portions. So in a complex world, you cannot hope to have authoritarian leadership. It is a leadership in which you influence and give directions. That is why in the IMA, in the Indian Military Academy, they don't call you as trainer or teacher. They call you directing staff, right? Directing staff means you are just giving direction to them. You are influencing their thoughts by your storytelling, by your work, by your ways and means that you have been armed with. But you are not going to hold their hand or give them your finger and tell them this is the way you have to walk, this is the way you have to go. So that is how this directional, the direction giving is more important. And now, as we grow, you see, in World War I, the warfare was trench warfare, wherein you build trenches, you sit into one trench, you fire on the enemy, you know it is on the other side. By World War II, this trench warfare or direct warfare converted into a complex maneuver warfare, wherein the tanks were used. You go around the enemy's mind. You have to beat him in mind and space both. But today it has moved on to a asymmetric warfare, which you called as, we all know normally as the terrorism, in which you use lesser number of people and hit the vulnerable position of the enemy. So the world has moved from complicated to complex to volatile. And how does it match up with your business industry? In industry, earlier you thought that the competition is coming from, for example, a guy is making bulbs, right? And this company thought that the competition is coming from another company which is making better bulbs or a cheaper bulbs. But they never realized the competition actually came in from LED diodes, which is an electronic thing, right? So the competition, because it's a volatile world and it is asymmetric warfare, or like I was speaking to Jaspreet the other day. The camera company, Minolta and Canon and all these guys, they thought the competition is between Minolta and Canon and Nikon and all these guys. But where did the actual competition come from? Samsung and iPhone, because they created the phones with the camera. Today there's nobody who carries a camera other than the professional photographers. And everybody else is recording on iPhones and their Samsung phones. So see, the competition is not coming from a straight complicated world system. It is coming out of a volatile system. It is coming from a place where you did not even expect. So that is why your leadership also has to change from authoritarian to influence and disruptive leadership, wherein you prepare your trainees, your teams, not only for taking their own decisions, but also to be aware where the disruption can come from. In this volatile world, the competition is not about this. Competition is about a person who's not even in your field. For example, another example to this is, if you thought that the newspapers always thought that their competition would come from magazines or other newspapers, but where did it come from? TV channels. Now the TV channels thought that their competition is between BBC and CNN 7 network. No, it came up from where? YouTube and internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So you see, the competition is going to come from a place where you least expect it. But the point is, you will have to adapt. So from influence direction, you have to prepare your teams and yourself for being capable to handle this kind of volatile situation. Look into the future, and who will do it for you? A dreamer. Believe me, it's only a dreamer who's going to go do it for you. If you don't have the creative man, the creative juices and imagination running inside you, you will not be able to do it, and you'll fall flat. So that is why you need to prepare yourself with, you need to have a dreamer in your team. If you don't have either you are a dreamer, or you have to have a dreamer in your team, somebody who will look at a holistic thing and tell you that you can expect competition and disruption, not from this direction, also from 1 to 3 other directions, right? So this is what the second issue that I talked about is tough men are only focused towards mission, sorry, while you live and of course you work and you do your business, your life is passing by. You have to have a life balance. The challenge is how to have the life balance. So there's a very interesting place, Kashi. Lloyd, you may not have heard of it. It's Banaras or Varanasi or Kashi, whatever you call it. It's a place which, as per Hindu mythology, if you go and die there, you attain salvation, right? And there are places in this play in Kashi which are called salvation homes or moksha dham, where if you feel that your time has come, you can go there, register yourself, and only problem is that they will only give you 16 days to die. If you don't die in 16 days, they will push you out. They will say, no, your time has not come. But there are very interesting stories from there. There's a story of Mr. Mishra, who went there and he thought he was going to die. He went there for 15 days. He was feeling, actually every day he was feeling better. But at the back of the mind, he kept thinking that his time has come and he has to die. So what did he do? He called up his brother, estranged brother actually. They had had a fight in the past and they were not talking to each other. He called him and said, I'm in this place. I'm in this salvation home. Can you come and meet me? So this guy also thought, my brother is going to die. I must go and meet him. He went there on the 16th day. And Mr. Mishra was lying down on the bed. He held his brother's hand and he said, I'm sorry for whatever misunderstandings we had. Maybe we were both young and we did not understand, but I don't want to die with this regret. And his brother, started crying and he was talking to him and he was holding his hand. And he said, you are my elder brother and you were like my father. While he was talking this, he realized Mr. Mishra has passed away. Mm-hmm. So it's surprising that regret, that, thing that you've not been able to balance out your life has actually kept him alive till the last time. And moment he's over that regret. So the best part that I learn out of this is, instead of taking this regret to your deathbed, why don't you finish your regrets every evening? Right? So, no, I'm telling you, I'm going to give you an example. While I was the military advisor, which is a very difficult job, believe me, I used to work around 18 to 20 hours because an army commander in the army is, second in the hierarchy from chief. And you are his main advisor. You are actually coordinating, advising, you are fixing up the programs, you have to talk to hundreds of people every day. And those are all important guys, very high ranking officers. You have to be courteous at the same time. So it's a very difficult job to do. It's like, being the personal or the executive assistant of the prime minister. Believe me, I mean, because the protocols have to be completely followed. So in the bargain, I had to call about 50 to 60 people every day. And I had my own exchange in which there were 4 telephone operators. So I would give them in the morning, okay, I want to talk to these 50 people today. 1, 2, 3, these are the priority 1, these are priority 2, these are priority 3. During the day, my boss would call me and said, have you spoken to him? Oh shit, I could not speak to him. I would call back again to operator and tell him, why haven't you connected me to this guy? And this guy gives me some excuse and I blast him up, with using my choicest of expletives. I tell him with MC, BC, all sort of, you haven't done this. I've bloody got a rollicking from my boss. Why can't you bloody get me through to this guy? What is so important? So after, the day finishes, I would go back to home at about 9:30, 10. Thereafter, we have a social some social engagement. Now, my day would typically finish for these 3 years of my life. My day would start at about 4:35 in the morning and it would finish at about 11:30, 12 in the night. Right? That used to be the routine for about 3 years. So I would go back home at about 11:30, 12. I would call up my exchange and I would get connected to those three operators who were on duty for the day. And I would tell all of them, I'm so sorry. I must have spoken very badly and rudely to all of you in the day, but please understand I was under pressure. But that doesn't give me the right to speak to you like this. But again, tomorrow is a new day. I'm going to speak to you like that. Don't keep it in your mind, don't keep it in your heart, because if you feel hurt and you don't realize what position I am in, then I'm going to be hurt and I'll not be able to do my job properly. I will push you hard. At the same time, I also realize that I'm doing something wrong and I will have to do it again tomorrow. But please don't take it to the bed while you sleep. Understand that, and I'm a colonel. This guy is he is the second from the lowest rung. He's a nayak or a havaldar. Who doesn't expect a colonel sahab to come back and say sorry to him? But I would religiously do this. And before I would leave, anybody is going on out on posting or getting transferred, I would go to the exchange, carry a small gift for him, and say, thank you so much for your service, because without you, I will not be able to do my job. And I hope that you have actually forgiven me. So, and believe me, even today, I have left the army for last 2 years. I'm in civil. These guys continue to be telephone operators in various places. They give me a call on my mobile and ask me that, sir, do you want to speak to somebody in the army? I'm on the exchange duty today. Do you want to speak to someone? I will get you connected. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it makes so much of difference. So what I'm trying to tell you is, don't carry your regrets to your bed. If you feel at any day, any time that you've done something, which was part of your job, but on the human side, you feel that, I should not have done it. Imagine the plight of this guy with whom you've spoken like this, and he's not able to sleep because it runs in his mind. He's human being after all. Moment you say sorry to him in the night, or you make amends or make peace with him, he's sleeping at peace, you are sleeping at peace. So that's the point that I wanted to drive. And tough man means you take this kind of tough decision, keeping your large ego under your boots within your pocket, right? That makes the difference. Now, again, how do another thing which I would like to tell you, in your life, you would have had meetings and friends and acquaintances for hundreds of people. But over a period of time, you've lost touch with all of them. Today, the world is so connected that you can get back and speak to them. So it's my rule every day in the evening while I'm taking my walk, I will find one of my guys with whom I have lost touch and I will speak to him. An old schoolmate from class 5, 6, 7, or somebody from work from in my younger days, somebody from some other place, from my relatives. I mean, one friend you connect to every day. Imagine in 365 days, what have you done with your life balance? You've connected, you've given some happy memories to that person. You've given some happy memories for yourself to live on. And this is what tough men live on. When the times become tough, you can sail through only because you get to closer to those happy moments, and you can create these happy moments by doing this. I'm just saying, you have to find your way. This is one example which I use, which I use for my own life. You can find your own way, you can find your own techniques of doing this, but my point is that you have to find a happy situation every day. You have to make one person happy and keep yourself happy by making him happy. So that's the most important. You're not doing it for him or her, you're doing it for yourself, right? And a happy man is a tougher man than an unhappy man, believe me, right?
Right.
And in the army, what do we do? It's a very interesting thing. It's a wholesome thing. When we talk of the life balance, everything is a parade in the army. So in the morning your orders will come and say, sab 7:30 baje mandir parade hai. Mandir, I mean, you're going to religious place, can't be a parade. But it is a parade because a man has to be given a holistic life. he has to be spiritually lifted, he has to be physically lifted, he has to be improved in the social domain. So there's a ram parade in the evening. Ram parade is where all these boys are distributed one peg of ram. You go and sit with them, and you talk to them while they have had one drink, and they are able to open up with you. This is another way. So this is, if you understand the Maslow's hierarchy, you're giving him the social confidence. Physical, in the morning he's run PT, so you've given him the physical thing. Thereafter you breakfast. Thereafter you've given him, during the day's time, you've given his self-esteem some kind of boost that he's been able to work throughout the day. In the evening you've given him a social thing, and by night, he feels a satisfied man who's gone through the complete circle. And once a week you also uplift him in the mandir parade, and you lift him spiritually, right? There's a very interesting story about this. When we talk of the life balance, uh, on the Independence Day and the Republic Day, most of you will realize, will feel that, in the army we must be having unfurling of flags, flag hoistings, and all these things, because of course, I mean, army is supposed to be the epitome of the nationalism and the patriotism. But surprisingly, in the army units, I'm talking of the basic model of the company or a unit, there are no flag hoistings. The procedure is, on Independence Day, the junior commissioned officers, the JCOs, Subedars and Subedar Major and Naib Subedars, uh, they call you to the JCO mess for a drink. And on the Republic Day, the officers, they in turn call them, the JCOs and the Subedars, to the officer mess for a drink. There's a very beautiful story behind it. When we got independence in 1947, we were part of British Army. So actually, the Indian officers had no Indian officers' messes. So where would they celebrate? There were only JCOs and JCO messes. So they celebrated in the JCO mess, which they called their own. But by Republic Day in 1950, they had created their officer messes. So they said, we should return the favor, and we should start calling them to this. So till this day, the tradition is, Independence Day, you go to the JCO mess. On the Republic Day, the JCOs and the lower subordinate officers, they come to the officer mess. This is how I'm saying that it is, life balance is being done by making the traditions, maintaining the traditions, uplifting your team, not just by pushing them hard. You also give them the traditions of the company. You tell them that there's importance in the social graces, there's importance in the spiritual graces. You have a wholesome improvement of a personality. That is where a life balance comes in. Now, the last thing where I want to talk to all of you are, founders and CEOs, and you run a very tight ship, I'm sure, of your interns and your employees and everybody. But when you talk to them, please understand that there can be two type of leaders. There can be two type of company CEOs. One CEO is overconfident. Completely, he shows out that he's an Ivy League guy. He's had so many years of experience, and that confidence should radiate from him, and his team members should get inspired. But fortunately, that will only inspire you, only for a short period. In the long term period, the leader who shows his vulnerability is a more important leader, and he'll be followed by masses. Just to give you an example, between Gandhi and Nehru, what do you think is the difference, and who had the more followers? If there was Twitter and Facebook at that time, I can tell you Gandhi would beat Nehru hands down.
Yeah.
It would be between like Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi. That would be the like type of competition that you could have. Because why is Gandhi followed more? Because he's a thin man, he's bent, he's humble, he wears only a dhoti, he doesn't have a cloth on top, and people find he's a vulnerable leader. They connect to him. I am the normal janta, I am the common man. I connect to a man like that. I don't connect to a man who has gone on his family money to Oxford, studied law, went to Harvard, From there, you come back as a bloody lawyer, and thereafter you say that I'm going to take India to the 21st century. Sorry, I don't connect to a man like that. Unfortunately, I may get, that charisma will impress me for some time, but at some stage, I will change my loyalties to a person whom I connect with. That is why the difference between Gandhi and Nehru. And you have to understand in your leadership, you have to be a vulnerable leader. You cannot be overly confident, and wherein you will turn away your employees because all of them at some stage will feel, yeah, this guy is beyond me. I don't think I can reach his position. So please understand this. And this is a very important lesson which I have learned in my life. I mean, you can utilize it the way you want to. Coming from this, I thought that I must talk to you about, why is it that my personal experience can be important to the industry? I mean, I've just worked for about 2 years, last 2 years, about 1 year in three companies and various corporates, multinationals. And thereafter, after I got the experience, thereafter, I left all that, and I am founder of a company which is working for as consultants. So why is my experience relevant? Because all through my life, in the army, the operations, the battles, everything, the planning, it is like a startup chaos. You have to have that understanding of gaining the direction in that utter chaos, and use your planning skills and your leadership to take your complete team through that chaos. Imagine when I say complex world and asymmetric world, when you take a person, there's something known as road opening party. Road opening party is in the terrorism infested areas. You have certain roads where the army convoy has to move, and you have to clear up that road so that the convoy is not ever made target by the terrorists. But that happens on and off. It happens. You would have seen or heard or read about this. So I was part or a commander of one of these road opening parties, which was about, in 35 kilometers road area. It had, on one side it had Chenab, the other side it had the hills. It is impossible for a company of about 70 people to clear out the whole area every day. It is just impossible. So what do? You find ways and means to put pickets. You tell people to be attentive. You go around on that route again and again. But what I'm telling you is that there is utter chaos every morning despite your best briefing. You tell each party, smaller party, you will go to point number this, sit there, you will go and check all this area. But despite that, every man is so, charged up in that area that they will start giving you radio messages. I have seen something, some white colored paper there. I think there could be some kind of explosive there. You're running from point to point, but in that manner, since you are experienced and you have that leadership capability, you work through that ambiguity and decide what are your priorities. That is very important. As a leader, you need to know that how to work through your ambiguous status. And that is where my experience comes in, because I've done this all through my life. Through chaos, I've led them through chaos, right? You'll be surprised. There's an annual, like you guys have the annual appraisal. There's something known as annual confidential report in the Indian Army for officers, right? It has got a paragraph. It has got, you are evaluated in a paragraph in which says capability to work through ambiguity.
Wow.
And if you get anything less than, it is a 9 points is the highest that you get. If you get anything less than 9, you are doomed. That means your commander, your senior understands that you need very clear directions, which is not possible in a battle or in an operation. You'll have to work through ambiguity. So it's a very important part in the ACR, in the annual report, right? So that's what I'm trying to tell you. And then leaders, as leaders, don't be a slave to the standard operating procedures. That is why you are a leader and you're not a manager. The difference is, as a leader, when you think, just imagine there's a guy in your company and he wants to take a loan from your company. He's an employee. He wants to take a loan from your company. because his mother is not well or she's undergoing a cancer treatment or something. Now he comes to you and says, "Sir, you are the CEO. I want about 2 lakh rupees because my mother is, undergoing this treatment. I have to get her through." Now, immediately, what will your HR manager and your accounts manager will tell you? "Sir, this is against the company policy. He has just joined in the last 3 months. We can't give him any kind of loan. These are the policies. These are the standard operating procedures. We can't give you." That is a manager's job. But as a leader, what is your job? Deviate, work through this, understand on the connect to this man on a human level. Moment you help him out at this period, you have got an employee who's going to be loyal to you all through your life. But please use your discretion. Don't be a slave to the standard operating procedure. If you are still going as per standard operating procedure, you haven't moved on from managerial level to a leadership level. That's the difference, right? That's one experience, because I won't say that I've deviated in every situation, but I have taken calls at places wherein I felt that, this man has to be helped in this kind of manner, right? So that's a very important part. Now, somebody spoke of, while I was listening to your, complete annual report, I saw that perseverance is a
Yeah.
very important point. There's a very important thing that I learned again to that my commando course. There is a 40-kilometer run back. Run back is, you carrying your 40 kgs, 60 kgs pithu on your back. You're carrying a weapon which is about 6 to 7 kgs, and thereafter you're carrying some other things, a radio and other things, and you have to go on a 40-kilometer walk point to point. And 40 kilometers, believe me, I mean, with that kind of weight is adequate for a man to, leave in between. But when I was about to start this, again, this Makhan Singh, my trainer there, he came to me. I hope he's alive and, he's somewhere and listening to me, and understands that I remember his life lessons. So this guy comes to me and says, "Commando, आपको एक बात बताना बहुत जरूरी है." I said, "क्या?" बोला, "आप ये 40 किलोमीटर पे जा रहे हो, और ये 40 किलोमीटर जो है, इसमें ज्यादातर लोग रास्ते में थक जाते हैं, गिर जाते हैं, बैठ जाते हैं। जीतेगा और खत्म वो करेगा जो कि इसको रिवर्स देखेगा." I didn't understand what is that reverse counting. He said, "Don't count 1 to 40, count 40 to 1." So you have your goal in the picture, that I have to complete this, but start counting. I have taken 1 kilometer, I have finished 1 kilometer, but I am left only with 39. Now it reduces your mentally, you start thinking that you're closer to your goal. And believe me, with every step, actually, I started feeling that yes, 2 kilometers, oh, only 38 is left. 3 kilometers, 37 is left. So you're reducing your goal and you're getting closer to your goal. So it's a mental sort of technique wherein you look at your goals first, and with every step you don't think that what is the route that you have to take. You see that what how closer you have come to your goal. That is where you have to change your thinking and you have to do this. So I'm so thankful to this guy to to give me such kind of life lessons. And so these are the type of things. This is something from my commando course. I mean, these are the obstacle training that I'm talking of, the jump from that 17-meter high thing. uh, then there are certain experiences that I want to talk to you about. While I say experience is all about traveling, observing and learning, you know this on the left hand side, you see this picture, this old man. Have you all heard of a place called Turtuk? Turtuk is ahead of Leh. This is actually the second last village on the Indian side. It was part of India till 1947, and it was captured by Pakistanis in 1947 during the raids. It remained with Pakistan till 1971, and on 15th of December 1971, the Indian Army recaptured it, and the people who were sleeping in that village suddenly changed their nationality over the night. From Pakistani, they became Indians, right? So that is the man who's king of Turtuk, Kacho Saab, and his house was actually occupied from 47 till 71 by the Pakistani army. So when I went to Leh and went to Turtuk, I traveled to that place. I went and spent about a day with this man Kacho. It is such a hair-raising story to understand that while you were here sleeping in your house, suddenly your nation has changed. From Pakistan, you become India, right? And your half your relatives are still on the other side. You're not able to talk to them. So it's a story how this man has made his life from zero to king to zero to again king. So many ups and downs, and all these kind of experiences actually humble you a lot, and you feel that your inspiration remains high in this life. I can see everybody shifting. Not not much time I'm going to take. So what I what I mean to tell you is that while you travel, you observe, you learn, there are various creative things that you do in this period, and you continue to remain creative and imaginative about your business, about storytelling, about building your teams, about doing everything in life. But for this, if you think of having an idol, you have to have a north star which inspires you. So I'm sure all of you have heard about Eklavya story, right? He idolized Dronacharya, who was the trainer for all Pandavas. But at the end of the day, I don't think Dronacharya actually, was the person. He actually disappointed Eklavya. So I'm so thankful that he made an idol of this guy and trained against, just taking inspiration. So have your idol or an image which is beyond your disappointment, which will never disappoint you. So there's a story about the army which I want to share with you. There's a story of Badlu Ram. This is from Assam regiment. This is World War II. So Badlu Ram was one of the boys who were in Kohima with Assam regiment, and World War II. They were fighting, and this guy died. When he died, he was buried in that area. But the person who was making indents for the Russian, he did not remove his name from the indents, and continued, the company continued to get extra rations in name of Badluram. After about 8 months, the same place was seized by the Japanese Imperial Army. They completely covered and cordoned off this area, and they continued to stay there for about 2 months. And imagine what saved him, what saved that company, that extra ration that they were getting for this dead man Badluram. That extra ration helped them to survive this through this time, right? So they have their regimental song. You must go and Google it sometime. It says, "बदलू राम का बदन जमीन के नीचे है, ऊपर हमको उसका राशन मिलता है." Right? So his body is buried under the ground, but on top of the ground, we are getting his rations, we are getting food for him. Imagine the kind of fervor, imagine the kind of inspiration the today's soldier in Assam regiment, he's told, you are from a regiment where even the dead will feed you, right? So that's the kind of story you make around it. It's not about just but that Badluram, he has been idolized. That creative story has been made. So today, every soldier knows that I have to live up to the expectations of Badluram, because these are people who will give us ration and feed us and inspire us even while they're dead. That's the message of the story. So this is what I wanted to tell you. And now coming from from there to my own personal things, while everything was going around, I want to tell you that I took a plunge into this writing and writing these stories. These are short stories. Can you see me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
It's looking
these
good.
are short stories which are from different parts of the country, and these are based on real people, right? I've only changed a name or two for the people. I've changed the name or two for the people, and so that it is not it is anonymous. But the actual situations have been just modified to make it a little more interesting. But these are based on real stories, and you will be surprised how. And none of these are Fauji stories. They're not about armed forces and fighting, and these are about normal people who have had the choice in life, and what kind of choices did they make, and what made them such inspiring personalities, right? So these are each stories about 10 to 12 pages or 13 pages at best. So you must, I mean, I'm just telling you, but the important point that I wanted to tell you is, when I wrote this book and this book came out, I did not know anything about social media and marketing, coming from the army background, right? So I decided that I will have my own marketing campaign, and I planned it. I did it. And can you imagine? I got the photographs. I started this campaign wherein send a picture. I said, if you like the book, please send a picture from wherever part of the world you are. So I got this picture from, New York. The other picture is from Maldives, right? I got pictures from UK, I got pictures from UAE, and I would put them on the link that I had created for all this community who were liking my stories. And it became such a wonderful thing that, I got calls, I got messages from such people all over the world. And I was shocked that, this kind of response you can get from something which you've not actually, I have not thought it, I had not thought ever that it is going to go in such parts of the world. So I'm just saying that you have to take it. In fact, it also went to the president of India. That's my book in his hand, and I'm so proud that it sits in the presidential library today as part of the presidential library, right? So I'm just saying that you can start doing things, you can start your creative imagination, you can start making stories around the thing, and have a dreamer and storyteller always on your team, or become one, whatever way you like. Now, what do I do? Other than writing books, I've authored about 4 books. I'm a founder at KVR Solutions, wherein we support new entrants and recommend the best entry routes, because most of the people want to enter the defense area, but they don't know what are the routes to it, and they feel it is too bound by the rules and regulations. But you'll be surprised that what are different entry routes. And we also set up projects if they want to compete for, and we give them an ecosystem wherein we get the innovators and the entrepreneurs together. In fact, if you see the photograph, we are the exclusive consultants for Uttarakhand government for creating a defense manufacturing hub for them. So we keep getting calls from various people in Uttarakhand, people who want to enter into the defense area. We also have certain clients in Rajasthan. With this, I finished that small part of my talk. I hope I've been able to put across my point. I've been able to put across the issues of tough men, and what are the myths about it, what is the leadership, what is the kind of leadership you need to adapt to, how do you need to change with today's world, from complex to volatile world. How will you need to change your thinking and your leadership in your company. Now, just before I finish, I just want to tell you there are various schemes in the defense which you may not be aware of. Go look at IDEX. IDEX is a scheme in which the Indian Army or the Defense Ministry gives you a grant of up to 1.5 crores for certain amount of challenge if you are ready to accept it. Challenges like creating a small a weather analysis by the artificial intelligence. So if you are a tech guy, if you want to create something in that, you apply for it. So if you are going to put 1.5 cr, the government, the Ministry of Defense will put another 1.5 cr, and you create this kind of system for them. Then there is Technology Development Fund, which again puts out these kind of projects wherein they give you grants up to 4 to 5 crores, right? Then you have defense testing infrastructure scheme, in which there are grants up to 20 crores. These are testing infrastructure that you have to create. Anybody who wants to know more about it can write to me. I can send you the links and all. Then there are various things which we tell our clients, wherein there are problems in the army or the defense services which they want it solved, but they don't have many people who are interested or who are capable of solving this. In this case, if you feel that you have the capability to solve a problem, then you can go with a suo motu proposal to the defense forces. You can say that this is my capability, this is what I think I can do. Will you give me a chance to work for you for this project? So thereafter, of course, there are various things which you have to, there are various documents which you have to conform to various kind of things that you have to documents, various the compulsory financial requirements and all, which qualifying things which you have to do. But that all can be done with a number of consortium partners. With a when I see this wonderful setup that you have created, Jaspreet, the bank, I mean, you have consortium partners who can get together and get to this kind of thing, wherein we'll not have any issues. So one is this, and then there are various simple requests for information or tenders or various kind of requests for proposals, wherein you will not even know that the thing that you are working in or your company is working in, that can actually go into the enter into the defense market. So there are, I mean, it is not difficult. We are consulting on this. We are helping. We've already helped about 6 to 7 clients who've been able to get into this market. But there is one issue that I would like to tell you, or I would like to take your attention to, which is that it's not a short term game. If you want to enter into defense, you cannot think of it like, आज मैं कोरोनिल बनाऊंगा बाबा रामदेव की तरह और कल मार्केट में आ जाएगी. It is not going to come. You will have to have a vision of at least 2 to 3 years. You have to think ahead. That is where what I'm saying, your innovator, your creator, your creativity, your vision will have to come in. You will have to have a vision. You have to think of a problem which is going to come up in 2023. And believe me, army is already, or the defense forces are already thinking about it. But if you go as a suo moto proposal and say, this is what we are tying up, we are getting this kind of technology from 1, 2, 3 places from all over the world, and we are now co-developing here. Would you want us to work for you? I'm telling you, there are ways to simply get into it. And thereafter, if you have the vision right and if you work hard on it, you are through for your defense entry. So that is what I wanted to share with you guys. Of course, there are traditional means which I don't really those are like selling kapda to the army, selling seats to the army, selling boards and chalk to the army. I mean, I don't really subscribe to that idea, because that doesn't work for a longer time, and there are already adequate number of people. There is a lot of competition in that. So we always tell the people to go with a vision, go to a place where we disrupt every competition and not go just by the traditional methods. With that, I finish my thing, and I'm ready to. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Yeah, so thank you so much, sir. I think you've given a different perspective altogether of how strong man behaves, and you have really given us the insights, the bridge between or the way they work in army as well as in the business. You have given some beautiful examples.
Thank you.
And I'm a big believer of stories, and today I didn't show the presentation actually. So there is a writer called Simon Sinek. I'm sure you would have read about the one thing. Yeah. So he very beautifully says that people don't buy things, they don't buy services, they buy stories. They buy emotions around it. I think
there's a Native American saying. It says, "People who tell stories will rule the world."
Absolutely, and I guess they have been ruling.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And be it the products, be it the service providers, be it a Tesla or an Apple or a Narendra Modi or anybody for that matter.
It's all about story.
These are all about stories. So I think we were all honored to have you with us. Very quickly, we can have 2 questions, guys. If anybody wants to ask any question, and if I have one. Okay. Yeah. Sushant.
Request Mr. Shashank to share his number if possible on the chat.
Yeah,
I just shared it.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll put you the email ID also if you want.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, Sushant, go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Amazing session, sir. It was like a kind of, you were saying that it was a disclaimer of warning and something like that. So it was something like we took courses like जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना, landmark forum होता है, the kind of perspective, the kind of work you should do. It was great, really a great insight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sir, as you just mentioned, I would just say the last part of it, being an entrepreneur, and as you already been serving the country. So I also intend, where we can connect with defense people. I'm a real estate guy. So what happens is normally there are a lot of ranking, because I have sold many properties to soldiers, to navals and stuff. So I've seen the disparity in terms of income groups and stuff. So, as a real estate guy, how can we connect in a defense where we can help people from a 5 lakh investment to a 50 lakh investment or 5 crore investment, where we can cover all the people, and we can come as a company, we can give a consultancy, something like that.
So, as I understand, what you would want your customers from the defense forces.
Because people actually buy a lot of properties as they
Yes,
get some
yes.
income and all, after every
So
year,
I'll
something like
tell
that.
you, surprisingly, in the defense forces, uh, where does the stock come from? You have to understand this. So I'm just saying that have a holistic picture. Our stock doesn't come from the metros. Our stock, our soldiers come from the rural and semi-rural areas, right? And they want to go back to their roots. There are very few people who would, I would say only 10% who would come towards the metro cities or the main cities, but they would want to settle down in places closer to their hometowns or home villages, right? So you'll have to look beyond this. Look beyond a metro station, one. Look beyond the main cities. Look beyond a place. For example, I don't know how many of you have heard of a place called Loharu. All right. So,
Rajasthan.
surprisingly, you will not believe it when I say Loharu, the complete district or complete area, every house has a soldier, right?
Great.
But is there a soldier colony or somebody's thought of making something there? No, because we don't go out of our comfort zones,
Yeah, true.
right? So I'm just saying that there are certain places in Rajasthan, there are certain places in Kerala, there are certain places in UP who take a lot of pride because almost every second alternate house has got a soldier, a serving soldier, right? So the I in fact I gave this presentation to one of the very heavy duty builder and tried to explain to him, but I think they're all into their own mind, and they understand that if you make a house in Gurgaon, if you make a building in Gurgaon, it is going to give you returns beyond what you can think. It is an exponential growth. But if you make a building, or you make some houses in Loharu, naturally you might not. You'll have to wait for some time. Firstly, you'll have to put in a lot more effort, and it may not give you the returns that you're
Desired
expecting
returns.
here. But at the same time, what have you done? You have expanded for the future. Once you've done this properly, thereafter it is word of mouth. And believe me, a soldier or the soldiers, they go on word of mouth and the trust. They work on trust.
True.
So if there's a village, say, I mean, you've made something in Loharu, thereafter, it goes in 3 years, the word of mouth to all over the army would go, yeah, this place is good, this guy is good. If he's making another, they will start calling you up and asking you, are you making another plan somewhere? Or we would like you to. You do a little search, send out a little performa, a Google form. You will find a number of people, telling you that these are the places. We are 50 people. We want to make houses. We would be closer to this place. But you will have to, change your little bit of mindset. Come out creatively with this. We can
Basically, we
discuss
have
this.
done that. We have done in Subrata Park. I have given quite a few presentations. Then I have done presentations in this Air Force Camp Palampur, Palam Vihar. So I have done that. I have quite a lot of people in my kitty also. They have helped me a lot. So this is what I was saying today. Anything we can support, being to the people who are serving the nations, we could work out some portfolio or maybe a consultancy kind of a stuff where we can guide people. This is the intention of doing it, just not the bread and butter of earning it, but just to intention of helping and let them know how they can grow in their real estate parts.
Okay.
This is the kind of stuff
So
I was just
maybe we can send out certain number of certain number of emails to various people. I can connect you with these guys so that we can discuss separately.
For
All
sure, I will definitely
all,
connect you, sir.
all
Thank you for insight, sir. Thank you.
Please go ahead. We'll just have two more questions because yeah, of course, go ahead, please.
Should I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, sir. My name is Preet Dhingra. I'm into advertising, printing, and sometime we also, almost every time we, the manufacturers in service sector, that we have also be on the war footing, on the toes all the time. Sometime we need to print the cards when Bharat has already arrived. So we need to print the cards. Presentation has already started. We need to give the book to the CMD to read because he's not carrying his book. We need to print it. You as a army people, you as a army person, you have to face similar situations so many times. Where at the spot you have a requirement to do this. How do you actually motivate your troops? How your subordinates? How you motivate? Because sometimes we, as owner of the company, we know that there is an emergency, there is an urgency that we have to fulfill, which is not even possible, but we have to give a try. But people under us, they feel that boss is mad now. What is he asking that we need to do? We need to have 4 days for this job, and he's asking in 3 hours. Like a similar story. This is a story when we were talking about stories. Client of ours, we gave just a photo frame, a certificate photo frame, which we prepared in the night and given to the I would say secretary to the MD, that she was supposed to give it to MD, and he was reveal it or open it in front of audience in Chandigarh in the next evening. We gave in the night. In the morning, 11 o'clock, they said, boss, wo to toot gaya. वो तो हाथ से छूट के टूट गया. And 7 o'clock there is a show company called Max New York Life. It used to be insurance company, that it has to be presented to the people in Chandigarh at 7 o'clock. We had only 8 hours, 11 o'clock in Delhi, and we had to print it, frame it, and reach it before 7 o'clock in the Chandigarh, and we did it. But that is a story but that client is with me for last 19 years now because of that story. But the thing is, how do you motivate the people? That is very, very difficult job sometimes. You can laugh like Dr. Asthana of Munna Bhai MBBS, that when client is asking that kind of thing.
That doesn't help. Laughing it off will not help. But yes, you're right. I mean, this kind of situation is faced by us very often. But there are two things which you must understand in this. One is giving the mission a larger than life framework, right? If your people understand, like how do you tell a guy, this guy is sitting on top and he's firing at you? How do you tell a guy that you have to go against these bullets? You are likely to die. You will not even reach the top. How do you tell this guy to go up? I mean, what can motivate a guy in such a situation? But you as a leader, if I don't capture this, there are another 2 battalions, there are 2,000 men who are going to die if I don't capture this tonight. Right? I'm talking of Kargil time, right? So how do you tell this guy? How do you tell your boys, Kia, you go ahead and, against the bullets and go ahead and we have to capture it? Unless you tell him that the mission is larger than life, what can its cause? And this has to be a slow bedding in process. You have to explain to your employees that what can one mistake or what can one slip up do. You said your client has been there for 19 years. If you had not done that, would the client stuck with you?
Maybe not.
No. That is where you have to explain. I mean, today's world, it is not authoritarian. You don't tell them, I'm telling you, so do it. It's not going to happen. He might do it, a half-hearted job, maybe, half broken again, send it to the place, and you will not be able to do anything about it. So every guy has to know what his job, why is his job important. That is giving him a story about his job. Also, at the same time, after the job is done, You have to, like, in the army, there are no, sometimes there are no recognitions to these kind of actions. There are, when people in Kargil went and, recaptured the heights, there were only as many awards given. But from my side, I feel that every person who walked up those heights is, he deserves a medal.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, just to be there and to stand there in front of those bullets and that firing, you deserve a bravery medal. But that cannot happen. You'll have to choose a few people. But what you can do is, you can create a complete mission which is larger than life. You can, at the end of the mission or a completion of these small things, how do leaders identify that, there are 5 guys in your company? Out of this, you know that there is one underdog and 4 guys are okay to, work like this. So what do? You pick out that underdog. Even if he's done one thing which is going to support you, you appreciate him, give him that appreciation in front of everybody. And that is where he understands that his each part of the job is very important to all of you. That is where your leadership quality comes in, to identify that guy and give him a mission larger than life. Moment he understands, if I don't do this, my whole company is doomed. If he understands the importance of the work like that, I'm telling you that he will die for it. He will work it out. That is how we do it. Also, let me just share, one small story, since you're from the ad world. When you hear this word, ye dil mange more, what comes to your mind?
You're on mute.
Sorry, Preet?
Sir, I'm saying the same product which said this, because you can correlate the things.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but you know why, how this same line was immortalized?
Yeah, Kargil,
Vikram Batra.
Vikram Batra, yeah.
He said, in some other context, ye dil mange more. And surprisingly, now this has become the tagline for them. And every time you think of it, you only think of, Pepsi or Coke, whatever it is. So you don't think about the original product. You think more about that in what context. So this same line or the same creative tagline has been converted to a different context. And today, when you speak about this with a photo of Vikram Batra anywhere, it creates a patriotic and nationalistic fervor.
Yeah.
See, how can this story become immortalized? So I'm just saying that if you creatively use your mind in your, what question you pose to me, if you creatively pick out the guy and you creatively explain the mission which is larger than life, you will automatically find that these guys will rise to the occasion and work around.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is the thing which normally we can imagine in the mind, but clarity doesn't come automatically when you actually tell from that background. It comes better.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. So, guys, one last question from you, Lloyd, and then we'll wrap up. We've already exceeded, and this happens every time we have an interesting session. So today's
Yeah.
session was
11.
mind blowing. Yeah, Lloyd,
Yes,
please go ahead. Yeah.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Colonel.
Thank you.
What a fantastic, insightful session that you've just delivered on. And reiterating my fellow colleague who presented early on, and you said that you don't do it a lot, but I believe you should do it a lot, speak a lot more, and you're doing a fantastic
Thank you.
job as well. So just a quick one on my side. Your leadership experience obviously emanates from a military background and the likes. There's certain aspects of that leadership approach that can obviously be copied and pasted in different aspects of any leader, if
Mhm.
anything. What advice would you then give as well, just in closing, to startup leaders and the likes? Because obviously the one thing is, well, especially one thing that I've learned, and I was sharing this with my team the other day, was the biggest issue, especially when it comes with startups, is not actually the funding, it's actually setting up a team. That's the biggest lesson that I've actually learned. Being able to
Yes.
find, being a visionary, being able to then find vision carriers that can actually help run with the thing. How what would you say would be the first three most important things that someone in my position with a startup would actually need to focus on, or should focus on, especially if you're looking to grow a team as well? Thank you very much. Yeah,
I get that. Thank you, Lloyd. I think this is a very, very pertinent question. Firstly, I must tell you, if it's a startup, it is not everybody's cup of tea. A man who has a proven record in a company which is a $1 billion company, if you put him in a startup, he may not be able to perform well because he's fixed to certain setup procedures. He doesn't work through the ambiguity and chaos in life. But there are certain guys who thrive in this chaos. Especially the military guys, you'll find that they thrive in the chaos if they've been trained well. And they know that, if you keep your goal correct, if you keep your focus right, you're going to get through this. So firstly, it is not that, a proven guy will become a better CEO in a startup thing. Sorry, startup is a state of mind. It is an entrepreneurship state of mind. It is not about being your, experience. Now, the question that Lloyd has asked me, that what are the three most important things to create your team? Firstly, in a startup, you don't have the funding. So we are beggars and not choosers. You can't go to number one, grade one or Ivy League colleges and hire the guys from there. Why will he come to you? He's passing out from Harvard or Oxford. He would go and directly join Coke, Pepsi or Max or somewhere in US. Why would he come to you? But the point is, sometimes you will hit jackpot by going into the team members, hiring the team members from not grade B, grade C. And these guys are the guys who will actually have a practical experience in life, right? But he must have you will have to cultivate this team. Like for my startup, I have interns coming from, I wouldn't say grade 2, grade 3. They're, I think they're grade 4 or 5 universities or colleges. But I am very confident of myself that I will convert them into the human resource that everybody will die to hire for. So that's your capability and your confidence as a CEO, which is very important. Second important thing is that you have to give them a goal and mission in life, a mission which is larger than life. If you can sell the story of your mission and explain to them that, why and how this company, actually, what are you doing when you're hiring your team? You are actually telling them of, only your vision, because there is no money into it. Mostly you're telling him, just come with me and work with me for maybe peanuts, which you will not get anywhere else. Right. Second, you are telling him, okay, I will give you ESOPs, that stock options and all, which I don't know whether it is going to come to you or come to the company or ever it is going to happen. So actually you are both working on a dream. But if you equally make the team members as a partner in your dream, then they're going to work along with you. Third important thing is, which you must understand, that at stages, you will have to let go of some members of the team. Don't think that every team member there are some guys out of, if you hire 10, 2 or 3 will be non-performers 100%. You can't help it. It happens with the best of the companies, despite going through so much of HR. So don't take it to your heart and don't have an ego problem with that. That, I selected this guy and he's not able to perform. Yes, 30% rejection rate is even in the ammunition. The best of the ammunition companies keep 30% rejection rate, right? So please don't take it to your ego. You will have to let go of certain people. And some people will thrive in your initial chaos and work around that. But moment your company has grown to 25, 30 people or 40 people, and you have set certain procedures, it causes certain amount of paralysis. And then people the same team member who was working well with you as 5-member team will not be able to work well at 25-member team. Why? Because you put a HR manager who will come back and tell you, sir, he's not sent you the report. This guy doesn't like to bloody send a report every evening. He's not into that. He wants to go and meet the customer. He's good at that. So you will have to make sure a guy who from your team who is working good in customer relation doesn't get bound by the reports which your HR manager or your operations manager have put into place. You tell him, please lay off this guy. You take a verbal report in the evening, and thereafter you write on the report. I'm okay to accept 10% mistakes, right? Don't breathe down his neck. Please don't, because otherwise you will lose this team member. In 6 months' time, he is going to say, sorry, I'm not going to work like this. Bye bye. And there are certain team members which you will have to hire when you make into a 25 team member company. When you become a little bigger, you'll have to hire certain separate people who can never be part of a startup, but they are good part in the procedural part, because also you need to set processes and procedures of your company. So these are two steps. At every step, you will have to let go of few people, and you'll have to hire a number of new people. But at the same time, as a leader and CEO and a founder, the most important responsibility that you bear is to share your dream and keep reminding your dream to all of your team members at every stage. So I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Right. Thank you so much. I think, Shashank sir, you have answered this question for all of us, and I think it's very, very important.
Thank you.
And again, I'll take this liberty of sharing my dream again with all of us. So that is where we want to create, Rang Bhumi, which is a win-win situation for everybody, and not Rang Bhumi wherein I win and you lose kind of situation. So if we work that way, I think all of us can grow, and there's enough for us, all of us, to grow together, right? So I think that's there. So I feel very honored and blessed for having you here with us, and I'm sure our members would also have got a lot of value, and I think the value spread to the other continent as well. So we have from Lloyd and Anuj and Harvey from Canada and South Africa as well. So that's really pretty great. Again, we measure the intensity and the value of Bank Talk session by that, how long it continues. So today I think we exceeded all the criterias. It was supposed to end at 10:30 and we are at 11:15, and still we have so many members still there. So thank you so much for being here with us. We love to have you.
Sir, I would like to salute first.
Yeah, that is absolutely there.
I would say
instead
if
of
people
clap,
can
we should all
come,
salute.
people camera on, we can have a click also.
With the
Okay, guys,
salute.
if you can switch on your cameras, I'll just take a quick photo and then we'll share with
the salute.
Anuj.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm really honored. I'm touched.
Right. No, we are. It's really great. So this goes like this, and I'm looking forward to catch up with you in person, Shashank sir. And whenever I'm there next time, I'll take your time.
Anytime. Guys, I'm in Gurgaon. I'm in Gurgaon. Anytime any one of you wants to come and catch up for a cup of coffee or a drink, I'm always available.
So definitely I will come.
All right.
Highly impressed and would like to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
For a drink, you can ask Navneet to go to Kargil also. He can go.
Sir,
I would rather take a second from Mr. Chadda. You have joined first time. What is your view for a 1 minute last conversation of the day?
Excellent. I'm so motivated, and actually he has touched all the points, like, to become a warrior, and it was amazing session with him.
Thank you so much.
Very, very motivating. Thank you so much, Shashank sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Have a good day, good weekend. Enjoy your holidays, and let's get back in 2021 with like a tough man.
Yes.
Right?
Thanks. It was actually a pleasure meeting all here.
Yeah, sorry, the last message that I just want to tell you is, before you finish the year, make amends, make peace with all your, whatever you think weighs down on your mind. All your ex-friends, don't go back to your ex-girlfriends. Your wives are going to kill you. But those are mistakes, best forgotten and not forgiven. So
why Fauji's are so concerned about the girlfriends? All the Fauji's are same,
Yes. So go back to your friends, go back to your, close ones, near ones, dear ones. Don't finish the year with any kind of regrets in your mind. Finish this up, say bye bye to everything, start afresh 2021.
सर एक
Thank
चीज
you,
एक
sir.
लास्ट चीज और शेयर करना चाहूंगा सिर्फ एक सेकंड मेरे आज बेटे का बर्थडे है और
Oh,
मेरे को
oh,
अभी तक कोई
Oh,
गिफ्ट
congratulations.
उसके लिए लेने के लिए थैंक यू सर
Blessings, Navneet
मेरे
ji.
को अभी तक कोई गिफ्ट नहीं मिल रहा था लेने के लिए
uh,
तो शशांक सर की मैंने बुक अभी भी बाय करी है Amazon से
Oh, thank you so
Oh,
much. Thank you so much.
that's what I am also going to buy out, and I'll send you a picture as well. Although मैंने पहले सोचा था डिजिटल बाय करूंगा, but अब पिक्चर भेजनी है तो मैं अब फिजिकली बाय करूंगा बुक. एंड
मैंने
Somehow-
चैट पे शेयर करा
Somehow, I am still a man with pen, paper, and book. I love the smell of the new printed pages, and you get more connection. I'm from the older generation. Somehow I'm still not used to this. The digital reading.
Right. So I would recommend
sir.
everybody whosoever wants to buy that book as well, and I'm
Thank
sure
you
it
so
would be available on Amazon also.
Yeah, it's
it's
available
It is
online.
also. So I'm going to order that, and then I'm going to, and probably when we meet next time, I'll get it autographed as well.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so
that'll be something to cherish.
All
So
right.
guys, thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend. Have a great
Thank you so
year,
much.
and,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank
Take
you.
care. It was a
थैंक
pleasure.
यू बाय
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful new year, guys.